Huh? Sana? Is that you, Sana? Tom? Long time no see. It's been since the divorce, huh? You still living around here? Yeah. I'm helping out with my dad's business now. So, a farmer, huh? Must be tough getting all dirty. You here to make a delivery? Selling veggies for a bit over $2 each and making a profit? Not a delivery, just here to pick up some groceries for dinner. And don't worry, our farm is doing just fine profit-wise. What about you? What are you up to these days? Me? I'm still in sales, same old. But my wife, she's a real estate agent's daughter. Unlike you, we're dealing with bigger money, not just $2 or $4 items. Divorcing you was the best thing ever. Living the dream with real estate income. You can keep working the soil as a farmer. A year after the divorce, Sana, unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband at the local supermarket. The shock of being faced with divorce when I was pregnant is unforgettable, but there's a sense of relief in being divorced from him. Seeing my ex-husband after such a long time, he seemed unchanged. He looked down on me, boasting about his wife and trying to one-up me. Feeling annoyed, I was about to leave when something he said caught my attention. Wait, did you say your wife is a real estate agent's daughter? Yeah, so? What about it? Just curious which real estate agency. Not many around here, right? I deal with real estate agents through my work, so I was hoping it's not one I know. There might not be many, but there are enough. I doubt you know her place. He then showed me his new wife's real estate agency's website on his smartphone. Seeing the website, I couldn't help but smirk. What's with that face? Creepy. Sorry, did it show? Turns out, I know this agency. They're a client of ours. When I showed my current business card, my ex-husband's face turned pale. I am Sana. I'm a 27-year-old office worker. But I'm currently pregnant and about to go on maternity leave soon. Everyone around me seems to think I must be so happy with the baby coming. But I've been feeling a bit down. The reason is pretty cliché, my husband and mother-in-law. It's not like I've always been troubled by them. I think it's the result of various gears not meshing well together. It all started with my relationship with my parents. Sana, are you free this weekend? Could you help us with the harvest? I've told you, I'm not helping anymore. It's just for one day. You know how good it tastes to eat something you've harvested yourself, right? My parents are farmers, and ever since I was a child, my dad Ryan and my mom Allie have made me help out with the farm work. Despite my protests, they were persistent, so I'd end up helping. I continued to assist with the farm work diligently until high school. My parents wanted me to help not just because they needed an extra hand, but mainly to spark my interest in farming. I'm an only child, and I'm the only one who could take over. They never outright said they wanted me to become a farmer, but through making me help out and sharing the joys of farming, they put pressure on me. More and more women are getting into farming, and I do think it's a wonderful job. But people's interests vary, and I didn't want to become a farmer. Apparently, there's this term farm girl now. I've heard farming's becoming popular among women. Even the work clothes have changed, there are now cute designs aimed at young women. My parents would deliberately have these conversations loudly enough for me to hear. Having dealt with this from childhood through high school, I was frankly fed up. So, after graduating high school and moving on to college, I started living alone, escaping from my rural home as if fleeing. Freed from my parents, my college life was incredibly comfortable, and I still vividly remember feeling like I had finally gained my freedom for the first time. After graduating from college, I landed a job at a local company. I wanted to work in my hometown because it was what I was used to. However, I didn't want to be nagged by my parents, so I decided to keep a bit of distance. Though my family home was close enough to commute to work, I chose to live on my own in town. I hardly ever go back home and have barely been in touch with my parents since college. It's almost like we're estranged. But there came a situation when I had to contact my parents, something I hadn't done in a long time. It was to introduce them to my fiancé, Tom. I met Tom while grocery shopping after work. This was the second misaligned gear. Huh? Sana? Is that you, Sana? Tom? Long time no see. Since the Alumni Association, right? I thought you had left town. Only for college. I'm working around here now. Same here. I came back for work. I guess the countryside is best, after all. I thought I wouldn't find anyone I knew left around here. Everyone hates the countryside and leaves. Probably, we're the only ones who stayed. In the vegetable aisle of the supermarket, I ran into a familiar face from the past. Tom had been my childhood friend from kindergarten through high school. The last time we saw each other was at our alumni association, and we reunited at the age of 24. Having spent a few years in the workforce since turning 21, I could sense an adult air about Tom. A chance reunion with a childhood friend after becoming adults. We followed the textbook romance storyline, started dating, and decided to get married after about 2 years. There was no way we could get married without paying a visit to my parents for introductions. I took Tom to my parents' house for the first time in 8 years. To think you'd contact us after so long just to announce your marriage. We've been worried about how you were doing, but now that Tom's here, we can rest easy. My parents, a bit more wrinkled than before, crinkled their faces in joy at my marriage. It's not like we were fighting, but I was worried that not keeping in touch for so long might have made things awkward. Seeing my parents' expressions, I felt relieved. However, my parents were still the same after 8 years. What kind of work do you do? I work in sales at a company that makes stationery. The stationery company around here would be the one behind the station, right? You're well informed. Well, we've been around this land for so long, you end up knowing quite a bit. You're a farmer, right? I heard you're the head of an agricultural corporation. That's impressive. Calling it a corporation might be overstating it a bit. It's pretty much just a bunch of old farmers banding together. What about you, Tom? Any interest in farming? Farming? Dad, come on. Don't start with that now. As I watched my husband and father getting along, my dad suddenly tried to draw Tom into farming, prompting me to unexpectedly shout, interrupting their conversation. My voice came out louder than I anticipated, and I was surprised by my own volume, feeling embarrassed in front of my husband. The marriage introduction went okay, if you could call it that. After the greetings, I made sure to call my parents and tell them not to keep bringing up the farming thing. I also told my husband he didn't have to force himself to interact with my parents and relatives, deciding to keep my distance from them once more. Despite a minor incident during the marriage introduction, our wedding went off without a hitch. I thought my husband and I were set for a happy married life, but then the third gear started to misalign. My husband and I, being childhood friends, lived close to our hometown. That meant my parents' house wasn't far away. The same was true for my in-laws. Welcome back, Sana. I made dinner. Tom should be back soon, so hurry and change to help me out, will you? Yes, understood. Thank you as always. Even though we weren't supposed to be living with them, every time I came home, my mother-in-law Kelly was in the kitchen. This bizarre situation came to be because my husband had given his mother keys to our house. After getting married, I realized my mother-in-law was overly protective, and my husband was somewhat of a mama's boy. My mother-in-law suggested she help out around the house since we both work and it must be hard on us. Without consulting me, my husband gave her the keys, saying she offered to help. Neither of them meant any harm, and honestly, it's been a bit of a relief having her help out. However, she's starting to overstep a bit. By the way, I changed the curtains and the carpet. The old ones were a bit dark, weren't they? So, I switched them out for lighter colors. What? What happened to the old ones? The company brought the new curtains and carpets and installed them, so I had them take the old ones away. I squinted at the nearly yellow cream-colored curtains, recalling the now-gone curtains my husband and I had chosen together after much deliberation before we moved in. My in-laws live about a 20-minute drive away, so my mother-in-law comes over almost daily to do as she pleases while my husband and I are out. It's hard to bring it up because she means well. Plus, I don't want to ruin the relationship with her. But it seems I have no choice but to rely on my husband. Curtains and carpets? If Mom thinks they're good, then isn't that fine? It's not like she's asking us to pay her back for them, right? As long as they work, anything's fine, isn't it? My somewhat mama's boy husband tends to side with his mother. I always get disappointing responses. However, issues like this need to be addressed early on, or things will only get worse. I decided to be more persistent than usual, even if it means my husband finds me troublesome. Those curtains and carpets were chosen by us, remember? Don't you feel attached to them? At this rate, this place will turn into your mother's house. Is that okay with you? I'm not asking for the keys back. I just want a little less frequency and a bit more consideration, that's all. All right, I'll talk to her. I got a frown from my husband, but the response I wanted. It seemed like the issue with my mother-in-law would be resolved. Or so I thought, but it turned out my husband wasn't very good at handling these kinds of issues. So, I'm a nuisance when I'm here, huh? I don't think that at all. Don't lie. Tom told me. He said it's fine for me to come over, but you're getting annoyed, so could I please reduce the frequency? When I got home from work, as usual, my mother-in-law was there. However, the usually soft atmosphere was gone, and when she saw me, she glared as if she had found her worst enemy. Apparently, Tom had relayed the message incorrectly, and in my mother-in-law's eyes, I had become the villain. She was preparing dinner, knife in hand. I don't think she would actually stab me, but looking at her expression, she seemed like she might lunge at any moment. I don't know exactly what Tom told you, but I'm not bothered to that extent. I just felt it might be a bit too much to ask of you to come over so frequently. It's too late for excuses now. I decided to resent my husband for a while. Now, how am I going to repair my relationship with my mother-in-law? Consulting Tom might make the situation worse. I was racking my brain over this unexpected mother-in-law problem, but the solution came in an equally unexpected form. However, solving the mother-in-law issue led to the disturbance of a fourth gear. Congratulations, Senna. Oh, I can't wait for the baby to be born. Looking forward to my first grandchild. I'm only 3 months along. You're way too early. What are you talking about? Time flies, before you know it, the baby will be here. My mother-in-law was now smiling gently at my belly. Upon discovering my pregnancy, she did a complete 180. No more glaring or scolding, our relationship quickly mended. However, I was taken aback by the words she spoke to my belly. A boy needs to be strong. Let's play a lot and build a healthy body, okay? Mother-in-law, we don't know the gender yet. This child must carry on the family name. It has to be a boy. I mean, you must give birth to a boy. But I'm fine with either a boy or a girl. What you think doesn't matter. A daughter-in-law who can't give birth to a boy is worthless to us. It seems I had unwittingly stepped on a landmine. My mother-in-law's face, previously lit up with a smile, reverted to the look of someone who's found their worst enemy. Whether it's a boy or a girl, I intend to love our child just the same. However, my mother-in-law seems unusually fixated on having a grandson. Curious about her reason, I decided to ask my husband. Today, your mom came over and said the baby absolutely has to be a boy. Why is she so obsessed with having a grandson? It's because of a fixation on our family name. Apparently, my family used to be landlords a long time ago. But after the war, with the agrarian reform, landlords across the country had their lands confiscated. You remember learning about the agrarian reform in school, right? The former landlords were given government bonds, but they couldn't cash them in until 10 years later. By that time, due to severe inflation, those bonds were practically worthless. And like that, the era of landlords pretty much came to an end. I've heard about that. You often hear about land passed down through generations, but that's more of an exception these days, isn't it? Exactly. So, it seems my family was landlords before the war, but now I'm just a regular employee. However, there's this fact that we were landlords, and I guess there's a desire to continue the family name through a son. Do you feel the same way, Tom? I think that's an old-fashioned way of thinking, so I'm fine with either. But, since Mom and Grandpa probably prefer a boy, I guess a boy would be preferable. It seems like my husband tends to side with his mother. While he says either is fine, he probably prefers a boy. For me, it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl, I'll love them just the same. I wish my husband had said he'd talk to his mother if she said anything. But I know better than to expect that. Now, I'm left worrying about how to handle things if the baby is a girl. 2 months later. About 5 months into the pregnancy, the baby's gender was revealed. Why is it a girl? Why can't you have a boy? I can't really answer why. It's just how it is. But I guess it's disappointing, isn't it? Why would anyone be disappointed that the baby is a girl? I rub my belly, reassuring the little one inside that everything is okay, despite the outside world's reactions. Finding out the baby was a girl, something seemingly unforgivable, my mother-in-law stopped coming over. Though I don't particularly wish for her to visit now, my husband has also become increasingly absent from home. He comes home late and spends weekends out, only returning late at night. You've been away a lot lately. Where have you been going? To my parents' place. I thought you'd be more relaxed and less stressed without me around. Indeed, I find it easier when my husband isn't home. I suppose he thinks that cooking just for myself and doing chores at my own pace would be easier for me. However, I couldn't care less about the household chores. Ever since the disappointing comment about the baby's gender, I've lost trust in my husband, so not having to see his face does make me feel better. The absence of my husband and my mother-in-law brings an ominous feeling. Yet, being pregnant and having heard their remarks, I decided to stop worrying about difficult things and embrace whatever peace I could find. However, by not taking any action at that time, the fifth gear started to go awry. Now, with 5 misaligned gears, they finally began to clatter and break off their axis. 4 months have passed since we learned the baby's gender. I'm about to reach my due date. My belly has grown, and moving around has become difficult. One weekend, my husband suddenly spoke to me. We're going to my parents' house now. Get ready. Your parents' house? It's a bit difficult to move around in my current state. If it's not urgent, I'd rather not. It's urgent. It's only a 20-minute drive. Just bear with it. Reluctantly, I was taken by car to my husband's family home. Upon arrival, my in-laws and grandfather-in-law were sitting around the living room table, along with a woman I've never seen before. My husband sat next to this woman, and I was seated alone with no one beside me. It felt as if everyone was glaring at me. In the midst of the uneasy atmosphere, my husband suddenly dropped a bombshell. I'm sorry, but can we get a divorce? What? Divorce? What do you mean? I was so shocked by his abrupt request that I almost stood up too quickly, forgetting I was pregnant. However, remembering the baby in my belly, I regained my composure. What do you mean by divorce? Our baby is about to be born. The problem is the baby. Our baby is a girl, right? That's why you want a divorce. For that reason? Come on, there's always the option of having a second child, right? When can we have the next child after this one is born? Grandpa is really worried, wondering if we can't have a boy. He's afraid we won't be able to continue the family name. Don't you want to put his mind at ease quickly? But even if we divorce, what are you planning to do afterward? Through someone I know, I found a woman more suitable for me than you. My mother-in-law directed her gaze towards the unfamiliar woman, guiding my attention to her. This woman is meant to be my husband's new partner. The woman, like my in-laws, glared at me too. I didn't understand it, but I did understand why my in-laws were staring. However, the fact that the sex of the baby was a girl should not matter to the woman. Why am I being hated so much by someone I've never met? In the countryside, it's still sometimes common for parents to meddle and find marriage partners, right? I wasn't interested in that, but after meeting her, I found her to be a really good person. So, I've decided to go through life with her, which means I want a divorce from you. Turning my gaze back to my mother-in-law, she had a smug expression. She's probably the mastermind behind this plan. My mother-in-law, who had turned against me after being warned by my husband before I was pregnant. She had changed her stance once I was carrying a potential heir. But, now that the baby is a girl, she flipped again, trying to drive me out. Looking at the woman, she appeared well-dressed and slightly younger than my 27 years. So, that's what more suitable than me means. She must be from a good family. I should cut ties with this terrible family as soon as possible. Divorcing my husband is a decision already made in my mind. But what will happen to the baby that will be born soon? I fell silent, pondering the future of my unborn child. The in-laws seemed to misunderstand my silence as hesitation about the divorce. You're hesitating about the divorce, aren't you? How about this then? My husband presented a slightly bulging envelope. Seeing that envelope, my uncertainty vanished, replaced by anger. What's this? It's severance money. That should be enough, right? Well, consider it in lieu of alimony. If you take it, the divorce will proceed smoothly. You're going to need money from now on. Don't be stubborn and just take it. But taking it means you agree to the divorce. My husband and mother-in-law were smugly provoking me to decide on the divorce. My father-in-law and grandfather-in-law also nagged me about getting a divorce. However, as my anger rose, their voices faded away. Fine. I'll divorce. But I won't accept what's in that envelope. I slammed the table with both hands, slowly stood up, and left my in-laws' house at a leisurely pace. After leaving, I called a taxi to go home. While waiting for the taxi, my anger slowly subsided, revealing the underlying anxiety. Despite my brash departure, I wondered what I should do now, on my own. When the taxi arrived, I instinctively directed the driver to my parents' house. Standing in front of my parents' house, I hesitated. Despite hardly contacting them due to my dislike for farming, I felt pathetic for turning to them now. Yet, wanting to see my parents, I slowly rang the doorbell. Dad, Sanaa's come back home. Oh, your belly has gotten quite big. You only sent a message to your mom saying you were pregnant, right? We haven't heard anything since then and we're worried maybe our first grandchild was already born. Dad, Mom, I have something to tell you. I told my parents about everything that had happened, crying as I spoke. My dad silently nodded, listening without saying a word. My mom left the room at some point during my story. After I finished, my dad started speaking in a way that seemed to offer guidance. Don't worry about the baby. If it's too hard alone, you can always come back here. My mom, who had left the room earlier, returned with a bowl of soup she had apparently prepared for dinner. Tired from all the events, I reached out for the warm soup. It contained radish. It grew in our garden, something I often ate. As I tasted the radish, for the first time, I truly appreciated the value of my parents' work. I decided to return to my family home and raise my unborn child with dignity. At that moment, another gear started turning inside me. This gear was sturdy and moved smoothly. My situation gradually began to improve. I returned home and prepared for childbirth. I left the divorce proceedings entirely to my husband. I didn't want anything to do with him anymore, so I didn't plan to claim alimony for his affair, even though he had already found someone else. Nor did I want to be mocked for not simply taking the settlement money if I was going to claim anyway. A month after returning home, the birth went smoothly, and the divorce was finalized. Now, it's all about working hard for my daughter. A year after giving birth, I quit my job and found a new one. Now, I'm helping with my father's agricultural business. The warmth I felt from my mom's soup made me appreciate the wonders of agriculture. Similarly, I'm now working on expanding sales channels and preparing to open a farm cafe, wanting to share the beauty of agriculture with more people. In the midst of my busy life, almost forgetting the time I was married, one day, I encountered a face I didn't want to see in front of the vegetables at the supermarket. Huh? Sana? Is that you, Sana? Tom? Long time no see. It's been since the divorce, huh? You still living around here? Yeah. I'm helping out with my dad's business now. So, a farmer, huh? Must be tough getting all dirty. Are you here to make a delivery? Selling vegetables for a bit over $2 each and making a profit? Not a delivery, just here to pick up some groceries for dinner. And don't worry, our farm is doing just fine profit-wise. What about you? What are you up to these days? Me? I'm still in sales, same old. But my wife, she's a real estate agent's daughter. Unlike you, we're dealing with bigger money, not just $2 or $4 items. Divorcing you was the best thing ever. Living the dream with real estate income. You can keep working the soil as a farmer. You sound like a total leech, you know? Sour grapes, that's all I hear. If you're so upset, why don't you find a great job like my wife has? And by the way, my wife is pregnant. Just found out it's a boy. We celebrated as a family. Oh, is that so? Congratulations. Talking to my ex-husband started to make my head spin. Just being around him was stressful. I decided to end the conversation and continue with my shopping. However, as I started to walk away, something he mentioned caught my attention, so I stopped and turned back to ask him. You said your wife is a real estate agent's daughter? Yeah, so? What about it? I was just curious which real estate agency. Not many around here, right? I deal with real estate agents through my work, so I was hoping it's not one I know. There might not be many, but there are enough. I doubt you know her place. He showed me his new wife's real estate agency's website on his smartphone. Seeing the website, I couldn't help but smirk. What's that face for? Creepy. Sorry, did it show? Turns out, I know this agency. They're a client of ours. A client? You mean you're taking care of them? Yeah. Most likely thanks to us, you know? Huh? How can a dirt-covered farmer be taking care of a real estate agency? Well, my family used to be landlords, and it seems most of this area's land was ours. So, your family owns a lot of land around here and is taking care of my wife's real estate agency? Not around here, but my family used to be landlords too, I know. Landlords lost their land after the war. Don't bluff just because you see I'm living a happy life. After our land was taken away, my family worked fiercely, driven by a spirit of defiance, and managed to buy back some parcels of land. Having the know-how to deal with land, over time we started from land and eventually got into buying apartments and condominiums too. Well, you could say we're real estate magnates now. Expect me to believe that? If you don't believe it, why don't you ask your wife? Here, take my business card. If you ask about the agricultural corporation name, you'll find out quickly. All right, I'll ask. Can't wait to see you embarrassed. When I handed over my business card, my ex-husband snatched it and immediately took a photo with his smartphone, starting to send a message. Soon, it seemed he got a reply, as his face turned noticeably pale. Well? Did you get confirmation? Yeah. Turns out you're a massively important client. Looks like you finally believe me. I was thinking of consulting about leasing space for my farm cafe, but maybe I should reconsider? Since it seems to involve your wife's real estate agency. I should report this to my dad, too. That my ex-husband who left me during my last month of pregnancy's new wife works there. It's not like losing one client will hurt the real estate agency that much. What are you so smug about? Sure, my canceling the cafe lease consultation might not hurt the real estate agency much. But it's a different story when it comes to our entire dealings, right? Most of the buildings and land around the station are ours. So what? Even if your family is wealthy, how does that affect her real estate agency? You were saying something about living comfortably off real estate income, right? Do you think all real estate agencies own lots of big lands and buildings? Many agencies primarily earn through brokerage fees. It's a stable income source. Around here, with fewer properties, brokerage fees naturally become the main revenue source. Most of the prime properties are concentrated around the station, and most of those belong to your family. If your family stops transactions, my wife's real estate agency's main income will plummet. That's the point. Still, a real estate agency won't go under that easily. If we lose one transaction partner, we'll just find another. You seem to have this preconception that real estate agencies are all rich. The closure rate for real estate agencies is only slightly better than that for restaurants. Real estate agencies are shutting down all the time. In a rural area like this, in these times, a significant drop in profit could make recovery difficult, don't you think? My ex-husband's face grew even paler. It seemed he believed my bluff. It's true that my family is an important client for the real estate agency, and pulling out would be a painful loss for them. However, the part about the real estate agency facing a crisis of closure was a bit of an exaggeration. Also, while it's true we own buildings and land around the station, saying we own most of it was stretching the truth. In this day and age, being a major landowner is exceedingly rare. Nonetheless, my ex-husband, after contacting his wife, realized I wasn't lying. Hence, he believed that pulling out would indeed put the real estate agency in a difficult position. Hey, please keep doing business with my wife's real estate agency. And don't tell your dad, please. Now that I know the truth, I'm going to report it to my dad. That your new wife works for a client of ours. And even if you ask me to continue the dealings, there's nothing I can do. The land and buildings are managed by my parents, so I can't make any decisions. Please, don't say anything. My ex-husband's face turned pale, and his voice was barely audible. Probably, when he talks to his wife at home, my lie will be exposed. But for now, seeing my ex-husband's look of despair was satisfying enough for me. I left him behind and continued with my shopping. However, as it turns out, my ex-husband would truly face a situation of despair. When I got home, I told my dad about the encounter at the supermarket. My dad was an important figure to the real estate agency and had always been directly dealt with by the agency's president due to a long-standing relationship. He knew that the president's daughter had gotten married but had not seen her face or inquired about her spouse in detail over the past year. After hearing my story, my dad inquired to the real estate agency's president why he let his daughter marry a man who treated me so poorly. It turns out the president and his daughter were unaware of what my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law had done to me. They were shocked. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law had fed the real estate agent's daughter all sorts of lies about me, like I didn't do household chores or work, and that I bullied my mother-in-law, leading to considerations of divorce. The reason why I was met with hatred from someone I had never met before finally made sense. Upon the truth coming out, the president and his daughter were furious. The marriage ended immediately. My ex-husband, who is now obliged to pay child support for my daughter, was likely counting on the real estate agency's money. But now, that source is gone. Not only does he have to pay for my daughter, but also for the child of the real estate agent's daughter he had yet to meet. Furthermore, the terrible treatment they subjected me to spread quickly through the local network. The rapid spread and dissemination power of the rural network might have been enhanced by my father, a well-respected landowner, and the real estate agency's president, possibly spreading the word as a form of retribution against my ex-husband and his family. They soon found themselves receiving cold looks wherever they went locally and eventually moved away. I opened the farm cafe and am working hard. Customers are coming, and my parents are supporting me with childcare. Things are going well. From now on, I'm determined to work hard to raise my daughter into a fine adult.